Making headlines this hour, the Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, Mangala Samaravira, concludes his two-day official visit to Maldives. President Abdul Qayyum officially opens the Progressive Party of Maldives' office. And China's state television says the US President Donald Trump told Chinese President Xi Jinping his administration would respect the One China policy.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome you all to TVM News in English. I'm Zunat Hassan here with the news in details. The Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, Mangala Samaravira, concludes his two-day official visit to the Maldives.
During his visit, Minister Samaravira paid a courtesy call on President Abdul Qayyum. During the call, President Yamin highlighted the excellent relations between the Maldives and Sri Lanka and stated that the Maldives attaches high importance to Sri Lanka as it is one of the closest partners of the Maldives. Furthermore, the President also noted that there is high potential for greater cooperation in the fields of health and education. The Minister conveyed his gratitude for the collaborative environment the Maldives has always offered and commended the leadership of President for the impressive economic development of the Maldives. In his visit to the Maldives, the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister also met with his Maldivian counterpart Dr. Mohammad Asim. During the meeting, discussions between the two ministers focused on ways of further strengthening and enhancing the strong bonds of friendship and cooperation between the two countries. Minister Asim highlighted the importance of regular consultations between the two countries and expressed appreciation to the government of Sri Lanka for their continued support to the Maldives. Minister Samaravira also headed the Sri Lankan delegation that took part in the third session of the Maldives-Sri Lanka Joint Commission. The Joint Commission deliberated on a wide array of issues of mutual importance to both countries, including trade and economic cooperation, education and social protection, culture and tourism, fisheries and health cooperation. Discussions also focused on consular and community issues, human resource development and cooperation between the two foreign ministers. An agreed minutes was signed to conclude the Joint Commission meeting held at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It was also agreed that the Joint Commission would be held biennially with the next session scheduled to be convened in 2019 in Colombo, Sri Lanka. The Maldives-Sri Lanka Joint Commission was established in 1984 with the primary aim of improving bilateral relations in all spheres. The first session of the Joint Commission was held in 2006 and this session will be an opportunity for the Maldives and Sri Lanka to further strengthen their partnership.
Medical personnel from the U.S. Pacific Command partner with Maldives National Defense Force MNDF and Ministry of Health to provide emergency medical training in Adu City. The training increased the capacity of Maldivian first responders to save lives in the event of a medical emergency. The U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka and Maldives, Atul Kashyap, said the United States is proud to support Maldivian efforts to strengthen emergency response and provide basic life support services. He said that the U.S. will continue to partner with Maldives on this critically important life-saving medical training. Members of the MNDF Southern Area Command, Hitadu Regional Hospital and Maldives Red Crescent participated in the training in Ado Atoll, the southernmost atoll in Maldives. Topics included emergency trauma care, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, triage and transportation. First responder training is particularly crucial for remote islands as it can take hours to transport a trauma patient to a medical facility. The training was conducted from January 29th to February 2nd. The U.S. Pacific Command will provide the next training exercise in Ha Atoll, the northernmost atoll in Maldives. President Abdullah Yamin Abdul Qayyum says that the ruling Progressive Party of Maldives, PPM, is the major party that works for the development of Maldives. Speaking in the ceremony held to open the new PPM office, President Yamin said that the members of the party should be honored with the advancement the current government has brought to the Maldives. He further said that his government is working with the support and courage given by the party members. President Yamin added that the previous administrations have focused on achieving political goals instead of pursuing efforts of advancement policies that are needed for the country. The ruling party of Maldives, PPM, was founded in September 2011. Graduation is held for 192 students who completed courses conducted as part of Education Ministry's technical training program, Daswaro.
Daswaro program, initiated in 2014, is aimed at providing technical and vocational training for students studying in grade 10. The government introduced the program as part of the government's policy to include all students and ensure students leave school with vocational knowledge. The program provides students an array of options to choose a field of training that they prefer. Last year, 1,490 students from 165 schools enrolled in different trainings conducted as part of the Daswaro program. Out of the 1,490 students, 1,064 students, out of which 826 students were from 154 schools in the atolls, completed their respective trainings. These students completed a Level 3 trainings and courses in Arts and Design, Electrician, Tailoring and Fashion Designing, Front Office, IT Technician, Pastry and Bakery, Photography and Water Sports. Last night's ceremony to award certificates to 192 students who completed different courses under Daswaro was held at Tarubaruge. Certificates for graduates were awarded by Education Minister Dr. Aishat Shiham, Attorney General Muhammad Anil and senior officials of Education Ministry. Speaking at the event, Education Minister Dr. Aishat Shiham said that Daswaro program has been successful in creating educated and vocationally trained students. She noted the support the program is getting from schools across the country and added that the trainings and courses in the program are based on the references of students.
Cancer Society of Maldives has assigned former Maldives football team captain Mohammad Khalim as a goodwill ambassador of the association. The NGO signed an agreement with Khalim in the ceremony held in Champa Central Hotel last night. Speaking in the ceremony, Khalim said that he would assist the Cancer Society of Maldives with the help of other sportsmen. In the ceremony, special certificates were given by the Cancer Society of Maldives to the new sponsors, which included corporations like Diragu, Uridu, Maldivian and State Trading Organization STO. Cancer Society of Maldives is a national community-based organization formed for the purpose of reducing the incidence and impact of cancer in the Maldives. The organization also aims to contribute towards the well-being of the community by creating awareness about cancer, providing support and circulating information and resource to enhance the experience of people fighting against cancer. Maldives Monetary Authority MMA says that the state reserve reached $189 million by the end of January 2017.
Statistics released by MMA for the month of January 2017 showed that the state reserve reached $189.26 million by the end of the month, which is an increase of $8.2 million. MMA's balance sheet of January also showed that the state reserve had 267.4 million rupiah by end of January, which is an increase of over 36 million rupiah. According to the statistics, the state reserve had 231.3 million rupiah by the end of December 2016. Speaking on TVM Rajamedha program, Finance Minister Ahmad Munawar noted that the state finances are stable and that the government's economic policies are successfully increasing the state income and revenues. The government has been taking successful measures in its endeavor to improve the economy and boost the state's revenue. These steps have resulted in government being able to decrease its recurrent expenditure.
China's foreign trade volume reaches 2.18 trillion yuan.
Data released by the General Administration of Customs shows China's foreign trade volume reached 2.18 trillion yuan in January, up 19.6% year-on-year. Customs data showed that its exports in yuan-denominated terms rose by 15.9% year-on-year in January, hitting 1.27 trillion yuan, while imports increased 25.2% to 354.53 billion yuan. Scholars said that both exports and imports were on the rise in January, sending a signal that measures to stimulate foreign trade have begun to take effect. Vice President of the University of International Business and Economics, Zhao Zongxiu, said that this has benefited from a bunch of measures made by the country, calling on to stabilize exports and promote economic growth. Zongxiu said that some of the measures are effective, such as those aiming at streamlining administration and facilitating foreign trade, as well as increase in tax reimbursement for export. All of them have pretty good impacts on foreign trade.
And now we look into the latest news updates from international arena. A series of landslides brought by overnight torrential rains killed at least 12 people, including a 1-year-old child on the Indonesian resort island of Bali. The National Disaster Agency said at least 3 landslides were reported by the National Disaster Agency after overnight rains buried several houses in Bali's Kintamani district on the slopes of Mount Batu volcano. National Disaster Agency spokesperson Indra Khalak said the affected villages have been evacuated and the injured have been taken to a nearby hospital for treatment. The National Weather Agency warned of more rains, which will persist in Bali over the weekend, and told residents to seek shelter. Footage released by army showed buildings used by IS militants, being the Turkish military says it hit 11 IS targets and killed 23 militants in the strategic town of Al-Bab in northern Syria as part of its ongoing incursion.
Footage released by army showed buildings used by IS militants being bombed. Turkish-backed Syrian rebels pursued a major offensive against the IS-held Syrian city of Al-Bab, 30 kilometers, 20 miles south of the border with Turkey. The advance risks putting them in direct conflict with Syrian government forces who are closing in on the city from the south. A rebel commander said fighters of the Free Syrian Army FSA, working with Turkish commanders, were moving forward from the territory near the western gates of Al-Bab, which they had stormed on Wednesday. The capture of the town would deepen Turkey's influence in an area of northern Syria where it has created a de facto buffer zone. It launched its Euphrates Shield operation in August, backing Syrian rebels with special forces, tanks and aircrafts to sweep IS from its border area and stop the advance of a Kurdish militia. Al-Bab is a major economic hub for the militants and lies on a key crossroad for the region north of Aleppo. State media said that Syria's army secured a string of villages on the southern edge of the city on Thursday. The Turkish military said it had killed 44 militants in aerial and artillery strikes and clashes in northern Syria. The private Turkish news agency Dogan said that 5 Turkish soldiers were killed in the clashes.
The recent travel ban imposed by US President Donald Trump and new sanctions have dealt a heavy blow to many Iranians and caused widespread anger among people.
According to the reports, Iranians are the largest group most affected by the ban. An estimated 1 million Iranian Americans are currently living in the United States, and many Iranian families have relatives or friends working there. Trump's travel ban has made family reunions of these families impossible. They have no idea when they can rejoin their families in the US. Meanwhile, Iranian academics are also stranded by the travel ban. A PhD candidate in the Department of International Politics of University of Tehran, Ansia Salehi, is one of them. She said the travel ban dealt a major blow to her life. In the past 2 years, she has been preparing for doctoral studies in the States, but Trump's executive order shattered her dreams and denied her study visa. So now she has to bite the bullet to apply for a doctoral program in Europe. Some say the ban labels the Iranian people as terrorists. The US government will not end its hostility towards Iran. The executive order, which was signed by President Trump on January 27th, calls for the suspension of entry into the US for 90 days for people from Sudan, as well as Iraq, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria and Yemen. It also calls for the suspension of the country's refugee program for 120 days.
Campaigning for first phase of elections in India's northern Uttar Pradesh ends on Thursday. We take a closer look.
73 seats of 15 districts in the state will undergo for poll on February 11th. India's Chief Election Commissioner Syed Nasim Ahmad Zaidi said poll officials have been directed to enforce the Model Code of Conduct. Zaidi said they have sent orders to 4 election officials to implement model of conduct without any differences or discrimination for any political party and enforce it properly. Uttar Pradesh, one of India's poorest states with a population larger than that of Russia, is crucial for Modi's long-term plan for re-election in 2019. The first phase of the polls is likely to create a tone for the rest 6 phases, which is bound to end on March 8th. Reportedly, there are 382.44 thousand eligible voters in the first phase, which includes more than 35.71 thousand first-time voters in the age group of 18 to 19 years and 174.107 thousand women. Zaidi said that elaborate security arrangements have been made at all places going to polls, including Kairana, which witnessed mass exodus of people from Hindu community in June 2016. Members of Hindu community from Kairana town were forced to flee after they were targeted by goons from a minority community last year. Most of the houses were abandoned and some people put their houses on sale. This year, Congress and Yadav's regional Samajwadi Party are jointly contesting the 7-phase state polls that begin on February 11th. Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party has been out of power in the state for nearly 15 years, and ruling regional Samajwadi Party and Mayawati-led Bahujan Samaj Party are the 2 main political parties in the state. Result of all the elections will be announced in mid-March.
A UN official says that the United Nations is considering removing military personnel from its peacekeeping mission in Haiti, indicating a possible scaling back of one of the body's longest-running and widely criticized missions.
The UN mission in Haiti has been in the country since 2004, when a rebellion led to the ouster and exile of then-President Jean-Bertrand Aristide. It is the only US peacekeeping mission in the Americas. Haiti suffered a 2-year political crisis until the recent election and inauguration of President Jovenel Moïse. It has suffered major natural disasters, including an earthquake in 2010 and Hurricane Matthew last year. But the impoverished country has not had an armed conflict in years. UN Deputy Secretary General Hervé Ledsoe said Haiti was a very different country from when peacekeeping troops first arrived. The UN has been encouraged by the recent successful completion of the elections, the inauguration of the president, and the development and building up of the police force. He added that there would be a UN assessment mission to determine a reconfiguration of the forces, although he cautioned that there was still a way to go. Last October, the UN Security Council, which approves the mandates of the various peacekeeping missions, renewed the forces for 6 months rather than the usual year, a signal to observers of possible change for the mission. Ledsoe signaled out the justice system and tackling corruption in Haiti for areas to continue to work on. The UN mission to Haiti has been criticized for sexual abuse allegations and its role in Haiti's cholera epidemic, which was started by UN peacekeepers after the earthquake. The Secretary General will weigh in on any change by March 15, and the Security Council is expected to make its decision in April.
U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security John Kelly meets with officials at near U.S.-Mexico border.
U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security John Kelly met with law enforcement officials and the Republican governor of Arizona near the U.S.-Mexico border in Nogales, Arizona. The meeting comes on the same day as a U.S. Department of Homeland Security internal report shows President Donald Trump's wall along the U.S.-Mexico border would be a series of fences and walls that would cost as much as $21.6 billion and take more than 3 years to construct. The report's estimated price tag is much higher than a $12 billion figure cited by Trump in his campaign and estimates as high as $15 billion. The report is expected to be presented to Department of Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly in coming days, although the administration will not necessarily take actions it recommends. The plan lays out what it would take to seal the border in 3 phases of construction of fences and walls, covering just over 1,250 miles by the end of 2020. With 654 miles of the border already fortified, the new construction would extend almost the length of the entire border.
Rescuers and volunteers race to save stranded whales in New Zealand's Golden Bay.
Rescuers and volunteers were racing to save hundreds of pilot whales in New Zealand's picturesque Golden Bay after one of the country's largest recorded mass whale strandings. Local media reported that up to 300 whales have died and volunteers are trying to send more than 50 more back out to sea while trying to keep them as comfortable as possible.
Oh, it's amazing. There are people from all over the world. Anyone who's within Kui has heard about this. They've just come over. We brought 3 hitchhikers over who just said they wanted to come here and do whatever they could.
A conservation department worker noticed the whales washed ashore on Thursday evening, but the government agency decided against the night rescue effort for fear volunteers would be injured by the whales in the darkness.
Yeah, this is the 3rd largest mass stranding that we've recorded in our history, and so it's a very large one. Logistically, it's a massive undertaking. The whales started stranding last night, around about 10 o'clock last night. We were notified of that, and then this morning when they went out and checked on them, most of the whales were already dead.
Local media reported on Friday that volunteers had managed to refloat some of the whales during high tide, but most were quickly restrained as the tide ebbed. It is New Zealand's largest known whale stranding since 1985, when 450 were stranded in Auckland. Whales often get stuck at Golden Bay, a remote but popular holiday area at the top of New Zealand's South Island. The bay's shallow waters make it difficult for whales to return to deeper water, according to marine life rescue organisation Jonah Watch.
Andy Murray said Roger Federer's Australian Open success was down to his layoff from the sport, and other players may need to follow suit. Speaking at the launch of a charity event in London, Murray also called for Davis Cup reform. Murray will play with Federer in a UNICEF-backed charity event in Glasgow later this year, but advised the Swiss to stay away from deep-fried Mars bars, a popular dish in parts of Scotland. With an increasingly busy schedule, there have been calls to rethink the Davis Cup, the men's countries versus country knockout tournament that is played over 5 sets on 3 consecutive days. Murray also risked the wrath of wife Kim when he was asked by an interviewer who he loved the most in the world. Conservationists in Mexico City report that there has been a decrease in the number of monarch butterflies migrating to their protected reserve in Mexico.
The study was carried out by the World Wildlife Fund together with US and Mexican environment groups CONAMP and Semarnat in 2016-17. It showed that during the second half of December 2016, 13 colonies of the plucky orange and black creatures were recorded, with 7 in Michoacan and 6 in the state of Mexico, occupying 2.91 hectares of forest. 8 colonies were located within the protected reserve and 5 colonies located outside. These figures represent a decrease of 27.43% with regards to the occupied area during the 2015-16 season. According to reports, the overall number of majestic orange and black butterflies that travel thousands of kilometers on a migration into the United States and Canada is still well below a high in the 1 billion range 2 decades ago. The study looked at areas where the butterflies congregate when they spend the winter in Mexico's Oyamel forest. Experts say they have suffered mightily over the years from the expansion of farmland, sprawling housing developments and the clear-cutting of natural landscapes along their migration path. Monarchs lay eggs only on milkweed plants which grow wild throughout the United States. But the milkweed on which their larvae feed can cause stomach problems for cattle that eat it, so ranchers and farmers destroy it. The butterflies breed in Mexico and then have 3 more generations as they travel north to Canada. Millions of butterflies fly en masse, often aligning on the same trees their grandparents used. According to conservationists tracking butterfly numbers, while an estimated 1 billion monarchs migrated in 1996, only about 35 million made the trip in 2013.
With that, we conclude the news for this evening. Thanks for being with us. Good night and bye-bye.